Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are on the globe. Welcome to this webinar. Sorry for this delay. We had some technical issues. My name is Rob van den Dam. I am working in the telecom industry for about 30 years. Recently retired from IBM, but still a bit active in the telecom industry, part-time, and amongst others, moderating this webinar. We gave this webinar the title Cloud, AI, and RPA, Powerful Tools in Digital Transformation. And why did we give it this title? Well, with 5G, we now have the first generation of telecom service that is really deployed in the cloud. So actually, we entered the era of network cloud, following the era of cloud computing. And that is really reinventing telecom networks. So in this situation, the situation of cloud-based virtualized networks, we see that network and cloud functions are converging. Computing and connectivity is converging, both in the center of the network as also on the edge of the network. But in this situation, we also need data-driven intelligence and also automatic decision-making, because often there is not enough time for human interaction. So we need AI for intelligent networks to make the networks more intelligent, more agile, for network optimization, better predictive maintenance, and so on. And of course, we also need intelligent business support systems, cloud-based, also AI supported. So therefore, these three topics, and we have three fantastic, great speakers to address these topics. So we have Antonello Arpino from Amazon Web Services, AWS, who will in particular discuss the, let's say, the topic of business support systems, in particular cloud and native business support systems. We have Andrew Sukolski, who is the CEO at Kyivstar, who will address the digital transformation journey at Kyivstar and how they have or are implementing, adopting cloud AI and RPA. And we have Konstantin Besma-Family, who is the Telecom Director of Intellias, and he will in particular address the digital transformation journey and what is the role of cloud and AI. So let's start with Konstantin. Konstantin, can you, in not more than 1 minute, explain who you are, what is your role, and what are your activities?
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting. So I'm 15 years in the industry and been working with a number of telecommunication service providers on their transformation journeys, working for vendors, for telecom operators, consultancies, and most recently heading the global practice of Intellias, an IT services organization, with the service offering that is tailored to the needs of communication service providers, vendors, and their engineering partners.
Okay, thank you, Konstantin. So let's first start with the digital transformation journey. So I think everyone knows that most telcos, they have embarked on the digital transformation journey, really to becoming digital enterprises. So Konstantin, what is your view of telcos in their digital transformation journey, becoming digital enterprises, and what do you see as the role of cloud in all this?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, being in the industry for quite a while, I've seen ups and downs of the telecommunication industry, right? From the times when the subscriber growth was through the roof to the times when the OTT players and the Silicon Valley players have been eating into the profit equations of the telecoms. And with the advent of the cloud technology and some 5G particularly and others, that are helping to optimize the cost, has been an ongoing journey for the CSPs to transition from the legacy telcos to the really the digital enterprises, right? And as we speak with a lot of communication service providers, we see the the change happening across the 5 key major areas. One of them, and the significant portion of it. So on the IT front, we see a significant move from the typical data center installations of the platforms and systems to the ubiquitous migrations to the cloud, right? The typical waterfall service development lifecycle methodologies are being replaced with agile and DevOps and the continuous everywhere approaches, right? A lot of legacy proprietary systems being opened up and being developed as a cloud-native microservices-based architectures. And of course, telecoms are starting to really harness the power of a lot of that data that's been at the telco's disposal for many years, and now through the use of data, optimizing a lot of decisions. So I should say that on the IT services and the on the data center side of things, the change have been particularly prevalent. Of course, the infrastructure and the network pieces are also transitioning, right? We've seen over time the multiple discrete network elements from different vendors sitting on premise and then evolving to the autonomous virtual infrastructure and the virtual networks and cloud network functions that are particularly important in the cloudification journey of the network. And as you mentioned, 5G brings a lot of challenges and the frequency of change, right? So the change management, the security approaches that were rather reactive back at the time are transitioning into the very proactive maintenance approaches, as well as the security-centered approaches. And the data in the network components is becoming a significant part that drives a lot of predictive and AI-driven decisions in the heart of the network to optimize cost and to generate additional profits. I think services, has been particularly huge for the modern enterprises, right? For the modern CSPs. We all remember the times when there's a pretty, limited amount of and portfolio of services that were typically launched with a lot of content and services partners that are being transitioned to the really diverse portfolio of services that are driven by a lot of ecosystem partnerships and the communication service providers and opening up their APIs for the external innovation, and a lot of innovative players that are coming and developing specific service offerings to telcos. We're seeing a lot of optimization from being feature-rich types of the products and services launched to a lot of services that are targeting improved user experience and the simplification, as well as various approaches to the different business models that haven't been there before. Things like ultra high definition video, immersive gaming in the 5G, all sort of applications that are important for the healthcare, like the telesurgeries and things of this nature. So clearly, this is an evolution not just of the services, but also evolution of the business models. And the way telcos are starting to think about the customer engagement is changing as well, right? There's been a typical list of the communication touch points that are mainly telco driven, right? The SMS, the IVRs, that are starting to evolve from the marketing communication perspective to the omni-channel and multiplicity of channels that are being used to attract and retain customers this time around. So the omni-channel experience and the consistency of that experience across various touch points is becoming very critical and drives a lot of that evolutionary change. And also, the way telcos have been operating, focusing on the operation and processes, and now focusing more on the subscribers and the product, drives a lot of process improvements, but also drives a lot of change in how the telcos actually operate in the heart of their organizations. Really, it's now becoming everything IT rather than previously more operation focused, and now more innovation and IT focused. So these are the key areas that we see transforming within the telcos as a digital enterprise. And I would actually highlight here 4 main points that are critical in terms of this observation. So we're talking about the programmable elastic networks and the cloud infrastructure that is becoming the key, the automation of the operation, digital engagement and user experience, as well as the new innovative digital services and business models. So becoming a significant part of the evolutionary journey in this transformational mix. So these are kind of the 4 areas that I would like to highlight.
Okay, thank you. A very good explanation. What do you see as the, let's say, the major areas in cloud transformation that you observe, and what are the typical adoption cycles?
Absolutely. So if you can go to the next one, please. Yeah, so there are actually 5 key areas of the cloud evolution that I observe as I speak with a lot of communication providers in their network and their network providers. First is the transition and evolution of the telco cloud. Second is evolution and cloudification of the data center. Then the digital services and service enablement. Of course, the cloud native support systems, including the BSS and OSS. And lastly, but not the least, is the data repositories and data lake. So on the cloud, on the telco cloud transformation, we see a lot of network elements not just become virtualized, but become cloudified and cloud native by design. And this drives a lot of OPEX, CAPEX reduction and time to market wins for telecom operators. On the IT cloud side of things, we're seeing a significant movement from the on-premises to cloud, either public, hybrid, or the private clouds for some specific use cases, and redesign a lot of those service enablers for the cloud, whether it's the device repositories or enterprise applications, but also a lot of telco apps are being redesigned for the cloud. On the digital services side of things, this is a complete significant innovation, both on the B2C and B2B front, especially as 5G networks get rolled out and the infrastructure in the data center becomes available. So a lot of those digital services are becoming and cloud native by design. Support systems, I think Antonella will talk a little bit about the movements and redesign of the support system for the cloud. But we see a lot of our customers either deploying the business support systems as a service, or thinking about various different ways to virtualize or cloudify the infrastructure for those purposes. One thing that I want to mention is that at the heart of all that cloudified network infrastructure, the elastic network infrastructure, is the data, right? And therefore, we see a lot of redesign and cloudification in the data repository, specifically in the areas of the typical data warehouses or the typical data lake components. Of course, with the baked-in, security, with the baked-in regulatory aspects, of the regulated environments that operators have to comply with and live, in this reality. So, from the typical evolutionary journey, we see a lot of movements, as operators start to cloudify from the physical to cloud server migrations, basically putting the Oracle workloads, MS SQL workloads into the cloud, and then as they mature and become more sort of familiar and comfortable with the cloud technology, they redesign a lot of applications, enterprise applications, data warehouse components for the cloud, and then move with the cloud native core network and transmission network components, of course, including the Open RAN. So this is a typical evolutionary journey that we observe with a lot of our telco customers, and I think a lot of the vendors are following this roadmap going forward. So cloud is absolutely critical to launch new services quicker, to respond faster to the changes in demand and the specific spikes of the traffic, but also it gives another level of capabilities and maturity in management of the resources much more efficiently and effectively than it's been previously.
Okay, thank you. So let's discuss in short, because it's very important in this environment, the role of AI and machine learning. So how do you see telcos using AI and machine learning to make network elements of the network more agile and more intelligent, and in particular because the complexity of the infrastructure is growing, and the frequency of changes is increasing as well. How do you see that? Can you tell that in a couple of minutes?
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you bring the next slide, please? Yeah, so as you correctly mentioned, as networks become much more complex, as 5G network dictates, not only the complexity, but also the multi-tenancy and the ability to deploy slices for network slices for various use cases, we see a significant uptick and in how networks are monitored, in how the operation maintenance procedures are being administered. And the legacy approaches, the typical approaches when you schedule those maintenance windows ahead of the time, 2 to 3 months ahead of the specific activities, are becoming obsolete, and not manageable any longer, right? From one hand side, networks are carrying a lot of mission critical use cases and applications. I'll give you an example. For example, the connected vehicles or the driverless cars, the connectivity for drones. This type of the use cases really require the appropriate level of network quality and the quality of service that needs to be provided and sustained for those specific use cases. So speaking about the machine learning and artificial intelligence component, I would break it into things. So there's a significant evolution in what we call the closed loop automated assurance. So this is the typical network assurance use cases that employ a lot of artificial intelligence use cases. But also as the 3GPP standards evolve, and particularly 3GPP release 17 and the ongoing releases have provided the additional level of network interoperability with the introduction of the network component called NWDAF. It's a network data analytics function that is essentially being a network probe that collects the service level activity data, a local analytics from the a variety of network components and then puts that data into the AI and ML algorithms that are cranking the data and providing, all sort of adjustments to the network behavior back, to the network functions, and of course aggregates a lot of that data and provides the contextual analytics to the specific data repositories and orchestrator components. So I would say that the intelligent automation, together with the network data analytics function, are utilizing the power of data in the network and applying a lot of that AI and ML techniques to operate the data, to operate the network more efficiently, to monitor the network more efficiently, and eventually drive that operation to something that we call the zero-touch operation ultimately. I think right now, anywhere between 30 to 50% of the network operations work are being essentially optimized and improved through the use of the AI and ML components. And I think the industry will continue evolving and hopefully get it to 100% at some point in time in the future.
Thank you, Konstantin. You just
Sure.
mentioned business support systems, and you mentioned also the name of Antonello. So we go to our next topic. Antonello, can you just within a minute introduce yourself? What is your role and so on?
Sure, Rob, thanks. My name is Antonello Arpino, and I work for Amazon Web Services. And in this context, I look after all the BSS and OSS evolution on AWS globally for all telco operators and industry partner as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We just actually discussed intelligent networks, and of course we have 5G. We also have the expansion of the IoT. We have, of course, there will be new business models, and all this will give challenges to the supporting business systems. So how do you think, and I think in particular cloud native and AI supported business support systems can really address these challenges?
Thanks, Rob, for the question. It's a very important question. As also Konstantin was already saying before, this is a big change which is happening now in this industry. It's coming together, the word of the hyperscalers and the public cloud technology with the telco specifics, and this is happening because the industry really feels the value of what this technology can bring, and we specifically tag them in three main things that I will go through very shortly. One of it, of course, what is very typical in the AWS world and in the hyperscale world in general, is our ability to quickly deploy new services, which has a direct impact on the time to market and lead time for new solutions, because we can instantiate new instances very fast. We can deploy new services very fast, and this type of technology we bring to this industry to make this also a facility they can leverage on. That is not been historically a very strong point because of the type of process and the approach that has been there. That is dramatically changing, driven by the actually end customer demanding for them. We clearly see more and more the need to be agile, which means actually not really being fast, but really be able to react very fast to market changes. And this is now a very demanding and challenging market, and the user behaviors and user needs are changing very fast. So the whole ecosystems and the telco industry actually needs to behave in the same way. Then, of course, it's possible because of the technology we do provide as an hyperscaler, but also because of the high level of automations which we have built over the time, working on other industry as well. So all of that, it really makes a big difference when it comes to agility and ability to deliver faster to the market. Then the second aspect of course is also related to the intelligence and resiliency that we have natively built in AWS, because of the scale that we do operate globally. That has been basically infused everywhere. We can't really operate at this scale without the use of any form of artificial intelligence and machine learnings. Of course, also through Amazon, we have been using since a lot of years AI models to automate the customer interactions and bring more data-driven visibility option for our customer. And that technology we see directly applicable on the telco market as well, so that it improves on one end the customer experience, but also expose more wider option, unlocking new opportunities for the end customer as well. And that comes with our distributed global networking and data center setup, which is structured in a tiering level that brings resiliency to the maximum extent possible. That is basically achieving some resiliency figures that are not really possible in the physical local data centers. And that, of course, is coming with more than 40 years of experience. We are doing this with telco operators at different scales. To be honest with you, the journey started back in 2012 with T-Mobile in the United States. So we have been building that practice over time, and that has been a very long journey, which is still continuing. And that went through an understanding from T-Mobile US how to leverage our technology, and now learning how to make this technology more viable in the telecommunication context. And now in the last 2 years, we're bringing this to scale. And then last but not least is, of course, the overall economy of scale we can bring to the table because of the shared tenancy concept we do have in the hyperscaler world. So you actually don't really need to procure infrastructure, you just need to share it, which means that when you use it, you actually is going to be paying for that. But when you don't use it, someone else is going to take care. That brings inherently an efficiency level which is actually not possible on a physical location, because that's your own. There is nobody can really access to that. While in a public cloud environment, that's the real strength of it. Still, you have your own segregations and your security to the max possible extent, but then that certainly means that needs to be a physical allocated infrastructure only for you. So that part of the cost basically is not there. And then, of course, thanks to this economy of scales and then to the level of automations availability of resources we do have, it's very easy to experiment as well because we can quickly spin off new instances to trial at new services at a very no entry barrier because there is no real capex involved in this. So you just spin off, you trial at the service. If it works, you scale out in production. If it doesn't work, you just tear down, and that's pretty much it. That has been historically also another big entry barrier we've seen to the innovations, especially in the telco space, because it was always very expensive. It always took a long procurement times before you can actually even try to do a POC of a new service. That is basically gone when you work in a public cloud environment, and specifically in AWS. So these are the three main ingredients we bring to the table to actually boost this industry. There is one last aspect which is infused in all of these of three. We also are pretty clear in understanding that we need to bring these services when they make more sense. And so that doesn't mean they're only available at the regional level, but they are available when it most makes sense. That's why we have what we call the ubiquitous programming model, which allows AWS to bring this technology in telecom operator hedge location rather than to their core network edge, depending on the use cases, so that they actually you can comply both to latency requirement rather than regulations, data residency requirement, or even customer specific needs when it comes for private 5G or industry solution. So that's the way we are approaching in the market, and that we see taking a lot of traction in the last 2 years. Specifically in the BSS, we have been launching more than 120 solutions out there in the last 2 years, and this year is also growing a lot. So we see really more and more adoption in this space.
Okay, thank you, Antonello. So thank you for explaining the aspects or ingredients, as you called it, for BSS. But let's now focus on AWS. What is actually your approach or in partnering with telcos in BSS projects? And how are you working with partners like BSS suppliers, IT service players, or engineering companies to bring these BSS support systems to telcos? Can you tell something about that?
Yeah, sure, Rob. Thanks again. This is another very important question. So if we move to the next slide, I think that will bring some support. But deliberately, as AWS, we have taken the decision 3 years ago to have a what we call partnership play, and that includes for us the combination of the technology and industry expert players in the likes of industry partner SI company working this place like Intelias or Quantel or Ericsson or Nokia and so on and so forth. And of course, the customer, which are always a centric part for us. So it means the telco operator, which are ultimately delivering the service, and our native services that we can bring to make all this transformation happen faster. We really understand that this is very industry specific and requires a very deep knowledge of the context to be able to be successful. As we commonly say, there is no real compression algorithm for experience, and we walk the talk. And to be able to bring the maximum values to end customers and telco operators, we really believe that the right thing to do is to partner with industry specialists in this space for them to use our technology to improve the way they deliver the software and actually embed in their applications the native services which are delivering on the three pillars we have discussed before. And this comes available to the telco operators, which in their turn they can leverage to be more efficient, more agile, and more able to tap the new opportunities which are opening because of 5G, because of IML, and because of the industry 4.0 type of solution. So this can't really be played in our view as a single type of approach. We need to have a partnership approach because all these ingredients are really fundamental for this to be a successful case. We have seen this in other industries as well. And that's what that we even believe this is even more relevant for telco industry when there is a 100-year history we need to take in account when we do the stuff. So it's very important for us because we get a lot of learnings through our customers and through our partners, and it's very important for them because they can access the latest and greatest technology we can produce at the global scale as Amazon Web Services, while we apply this across the different industry. So that's the way we see, and that's the way we see it really picking up and going to scale very fast. And today we have more than 30 partners, specifically on SSPSS space, more than 50 customers wins. What we call customers is actually launches we just done last year. In the last 2 years, is more than 100. This year we have done more than 60 to date, and we're going to deliver a few more before the year end. And we see more and more the rate of adoption of our not native services, which are actually enabling all the promises that we were discussing before. And we will keep going this direction because we are still in the early days of the adoption of this technology, and the whole industry is maturing over time to get the full benefit out of it. And of course, the next step, this will go more deep into the network. We clearly see 5G going there, that directions, and we see this going to the edge. I think you've heard about the announcement of Dish going in a full 5G network. On AWS, you have heard about Swisscom going in the same directions together with us, reinventing actually the way the telcos are built and operated, and in a new really paradigm of automations and lean operations and access to innovation, which was not there yet till 1 year ago, right? So the things are really happening very fast as well, and we see this actually happening across the globe, irrespectively, right? As we grow our presence globally, that's of course to get more tractions and more speed. But thanks to our edge offering, we can bring this faster now to even remote locations where we are not maybe there yet today.
Okay, thank you. We now have heard your view on BSS and also Intellius' view. So let's now go to the view of a real telecom operator, and therefore we have Andrew in the webinar. Andrew, can you tell something about yourself, your role, your activities within Kyivstar within 1 minute?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Rob. So I'm Andrei Zhukovsky. I'm around 25 years of working in telco industry, working as a telco engineer, as an IT engineer, developing different kind of services, starting from charging, ending up with value-added services. So it's a lot of things were done during last 25 years. A lot of changes in this industry were happening in front of my eyes. Now I'm a CIO of Kyivstar, and now I'm responsible for both for regular IT stuff, regular for each and every IT company, like workplaces, like internal process automation, like enterprise resource planning systems, BI, and so on, as well as for IT telco stuff, so-called like charging, billing, CRM, order management, value-added services, policy control, and many others. And since Kyivstar is quite deeply concerned and has very strong ambition to become a digital operator, and all of what I just mentioned is actually a key enablers of digital transformation, I automatically became one of the hosts of this digital party, and it's really exciting role for me.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. You have heard the view of Konstantin about the digital transformation journey and the role of cloud. What are your thoughts about the telecom digital transformation journey, and what do you think is the role of cloud in all this, and where are you or your company in this journey? Can you tell something about that?
Sure. To start with, I have to mention that we have very interesting position on our market. From one hand, we are very low RPU market. Our RPU is around $3 to $4 of monthly revenue per user. From other hand, we have EBITDA margin around 60% during last 4 or 5 years. And this puts us into a very interesting position where, from one hand, we need to maintain such a good EBITDA margin. From other hand, we are a very low RPU market, and because of that, we need to be very well concerned about our TCO, our expenses, our cost intensity, to keep our shareholders happy. From one hand, from other hand, we don't have any margin for any fault under this situation. So, talking specifically about cloud infrastructure and its adoption to our technologies, the fact that I just mentioned has also big implication on decision-making process in this area and our way of thinking. So, talking about our infrastructure, of course, we have started as a regular operator from bare metal solutions, but we quite fast understood that this bare metal approach is not something which helps us to have a sustainable business. So we adopted two virtualization technologies more than 15 years ago in IT area. Adoption in telco area comes a little bit slower. But still, at the moment, we do have very big experience in IT, mostly running on VMware, and in telco part of the network, mostly run on OpenStack with some ZTE flavor, so-called. So OpenStack adopted by ZTE. So talking about applications which are already virtualized, we have a full stack of BSS completely virtualized. It's ERM solution virtualized, BI, DVH, DMP is fully virtualized. This is about IT. Talking about telco part, it's packet core, circuit switch core. They're all under virtual operations. It's a lot of value-added services, it's policy control function, and so on and so forth. Of course, we are intensively studying possibility to go to the cloud, and this is happening for the last few years. We started with IaaS approach, and now we are actively using it for list of services like front ends of self-service applications, of portals, or any other kind of front ends. We are using it for part of workloads of DMP. We are using it for automation of internal systems, and we are continuing experimenting with it. And now we feel enough strong to go further. And now we are running a big tender for cloudification of our infrastructure. And depending on the results of this tender, we will make a final decision to which extent shall we go to the cloud. Also, we are looking for possibility to go beyond IaaS. We are doing some tests with and some pilot operations with PaaS and SaaS approach and cloud native development. So, for example, now we are running some front-end application using PaaS. It has some difficulties to be addressed because in this case you need to adjust a little bit your development processes to accommodate to life cycle of PaaS software which is offered as a service to you. We are still on the learning curve, but nevertheless, we are ready to go to a next step. And now we are also running a big tender for conversion to software as a service approach of our DVH DMP. We are trying to compare this option with regular on-prem deployments and to make our final conclusion based on TCO model, what shall be our choice for upcoming 5 to 7 years. Of course, the next step is further cloud adoption. There is no doubt for that. But nevertheless, we are quite limited with legal limitations applicable to this development, with technical limitations, especially applicable to telco part of cloudification, where we have to take into account different important parameters like latency, like round trip time, and geo-reservation, and so on and so forth. But still, we are ready to develop in this area. So, talking about how to choose the right strategy of development of our infrastructure, we can go to next slide.
Yes, because actually related to, let us say, your strategy, what are really the factors driving cloud adoption, and what are, as you have already in the slide, the opportunities or maybe the expected results or the risk and the challenges? Can you explore that a little bit?
Yes, sure. Behind well-known opportunities and priorities of the cloud, together with them, we are getting a lot of drawbacks and limitations, mainly driven by legal part, in some cases it's technological part requires some big adoption. It's different cost structure at the end of the day, and in some cases it becomes very important when you're converting significant part of your capex expenses to opex expenses, and it depends really on business model if it's good or bad. So all these changes and peculiarities which you are getting on top of those benefits which you are getting with clouds, they need to be carefully analyzed and addressed. And these peculiarities, they are very much country specific, and also they are highly dependent on strategy of main cloud providers in these countries. For example, there are two different options when you have local cloud deployment in your country, or you have to use some connection to cloud which is situated abroad. This has some implications on these legal limitations like data residence, GDPR, and other stuff. From one hand, from other hand, it has technical limitations because far away cloud gives you higher latency and limits the use of cloud for 5G, for example. So in order to answer correctly to the question, what should be the right implementation and application of the cloud, you need to analyze really all these factors, including even labor cost of your IT guys comparing to cost of the cloud, because all of that contributes to your cost structure. And then to take your choice wisely, actually. And what is clear for now for Kyivstar, it's there is no silver bullet and unified answer for all these questions. And the second part, which is clear, that despite of all the benefits of clouds, we are not ready to migrate to these clouds to 100%. So it will be always a mix of approaches. And even now we have, despite of all this success of virtualization and cloud experience, we have still a few applications deployed in bare metal, where it gives clear benefits of such a deployment, like more efficient utilization of the hardware, like higher reliability and availability, and so on. And key things to mention here probably is two things. One is to keep our infrastructure as independent as possible from big telco vendors. And if your guys are listening to this, then I'm sorry to say that, but still, all these politics games when ZTE applications cannot work on Huawei infrastructure and vice versa, when Ericsson cannot work on both Chinese vendors, they are driving us crazy, and it really prevents development of technology for us. And second thing, it's to use the most powerful thing of the cloud. It's to start small and grow fast. So this is definitely the approach which we are going to take considering cloud development. And this is our next future for upcoming years.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Actually, I have another question for you, but I also see that there are, well, we have a very nice audience and I see a number of questions. So I also want to address a number of questions from the audience. So I want to focus on that now. There are a number of, we cannot really answer all questions, so the number of questions that we will not answer, we will do that offline. But I see we have a question about AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I think that is a nice question for Konstantin to answer. The question is, what are the additional AI and machine learning use cases besides those already covered that are prevalent amongst telecom carriers? Konstantin, can you tell something about that? And maybe in a couple of minutes, then we can also have some other questions answered.
Sure, I think there are actually a lot, So the beauty of the telecom network is that it's a live organism and it generates a lot of data, right? So we talked a little bit about the automated assurance. We talked a little bit about the network data analytics function. But when you think about the subscriber interaction touch points, whether there's the personal assistance or the ability to authenticate the subscribers, for example, as they call their call center or they call the IVR. So I just alluded about at least 2 use cases in the personal assistance and biometric identification. There's certainly much more, when it comes to running your data warehouse and data repositories, because you want to essentially provide the analytical output and the predictive analytics, to the line managers within your organization. So, the use cases within the data analytics and data warehouse components are clearly there. And of course, as you look at the amount of data that's been generated, there's an opportunity to apply, AI and ML also in the business process automation. Whether it's the RPA components that are tackling, specific use cases all the way to the business process automation, a little bit more generically. So these are just a few, but I believe the promise of the AI and ML in telcos is huge, both on the cost cutting part of the profit equation, but also on the revenue side of the equation as well.
Okay, thank you, Konstantin. I see a question, and there I see the word AWS in it. So I think that is a question for Antonello. How does AWS typically help in the heavily regulated telco environment, and how can you help telcos modernize more and also try to make it as short as possible?
Yeah, thanks for this. The question is actually really relevant. It's a nice one. It's a very long answer, but I will try to be as fast as possible. As I was saying also before, we are well aware that telco is a very and heavy reason why we have created our edge offering, which enables to actually bring our technology into CSP premises or at the edge of their network, depending on the use cases. That is actually to mitigate the issue with regulations to have data residency in the country or even within the telco operator data centers, and also address at the same time the latency requirement. And the very same technology we also use for the high performance computing at the edge, which is one of the key enablers for the new 5G services, because we can actually leverage the higher compute and the machine learnings and IM models we can run very close to the industry solutions we're trying to untap through the 5G. And that can happen to the very edge of the telco operator networks. So both things are today possible through the AWS technology, as said, to both on one side cope with the regulations and the latency requirement, on the other side also to the industry localization needs for ultra low latency use cases, type of, or in the likes of augmented reality, remote healthcare, self-driving cars, and industry robotics. And we see that happening. To be honest with you, a lot is happening already in the United States. I think you have heard about Verizon doing a lot of stuff together with us when it comes to public mobile edge computing 5G. enabling robotics, enabling healthcare, self-driving cars, augmented reality applying to sport events, and all of that fantastic things. And we have built a specific solution for that, and that now we are rolling out across the globe, and it's now available. So we are really serious about it, and we really understand, and we actually thanks the telco friends that brought to us this problem to solve.
Thank you, Antonello. So I just want to have a last question, and I see a question with Kyivstar in the question, so that should be a question for Andre. What are the key Kyivstar obstacles to going full stream ahead with the cloud? Can you also, in a very short way, tell something about that, Andre?
Sure. Just to be short, it's mainly it's a regulation. So we have quite exotic regulation coming from old Soviet Union, and this regulation really prevents us to store our subscriber data abroad, to have it outside of perimeter of company actually. So we have to build data center inside to respect this regulation, or we need to implement some comprehensive measures for encoding the data to make sure that nobody has access to the data, including engineers of cloud provider. And it's quite hard to prove to external authorities that this regulation is really respected in cloud. So this is the main obstacle, to be short.
Okay, thank you, Andre. We are coming close to the end of this webinar, so the other questions we will address offline. For the people who want to know more, we will do the follow-up on LinkedIn. So thank you for joining this webinar and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.